Welcome back to the deep dive. Sometimes you look at something simple, maybe like a family tree.
Right, just names and lines connecting them. Seems straightforward.
Exactly. But what if those names weren't just names? What if they were? Well, clues, prophecies maybe, linguistic keys hiding in plain sight.
It's a great way to put it. Because appearances can be deceiving, especially with ancient texts.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're looking at Genesis chapter 10. It's famously called the Table of Nations.
Yeah, and at first glance, it really does just look like a long list.
Yeah.
Who begat whom over and over.
It does. But trust us, beneath that surface, there are some incredible layers. Insights about identity, language, history. It's really quite profound.
It shapes so much.
Our mission today, it's to show you how this ancient list, this genealogy, it acts like a theological compass. It's setting the stage for the really big stories that come later.
And we'll show how tiny details, things you might just skim over like a name or even a slightly tricky Hebrew phrase, carry enormous weight.
Yeah, this isn't just about tracking lineages. It's about why it all matters and maybe what it can still tell us, you today. So get ready because we're going to find some amazing stuff in here.
Definitely. We'll connect those ancient details to the bigger picture, give you the context, the deeper implications, and really show why this chapter is here and how it echoes even now.
Okay, so let's jump in. We're starting around Genesis 10, verse 20. That verse kind of wraps up this section on Ham's descendants.
Right. And then the focus shifts. Verses 21 to 25 move over to Shem's line.
And verse 21, straight away, there's something huge. Shem is called the ancestor of all the children of Eber. Now that sounds specific.
Oh, it is. It's incredibly specific and significant because that name Eber, in Hebrew, it's Eber. That is the exact linguistic root for the word Hebrew.
Wow. Okay, hold on. So the actual word Hebrew comes from this guy's name, Eber.
Directly. So right here in this list, you see the start of this crucial thread. It's the origin point for the name that will eventually identify the people of Israel. It's a linguistic anchor.
That's amazing. So it's not just a random name in a list. It's flagging a lineage, a future identity.
Exactly. It's like the text is putting down a marker saying, pay attention to this line.
So what would that have meant for, say, the early Israelites reading this?
Yeah.
Seeing their own collective name traced back to one ancestor in this huge table of nations.
Well, think about it. In the ancient world, names weren't just labels like they often are for us. They held power, destiny, history. To be called Hebrew, stemming from Eber, it's a powerful statement of origin.
Like a badge of identity.
Precisely. It sets them apart. It says, even among all these peoples listed here, our story, our identity starts here. It anchors their unique place within the wider human family that the chapter is describing.
Okay, that makes sense. A deliberate highlighting. But staying at verse 21, there's that other little puzzle, right? About Shem and Japheth.
Ah, yes, the age question.
The text says Shem is the older brother of Japheth. But you hear scholars, or see different translations, suggesting maybe Japheth was the older one. How can that be unclear?
It's a classic example of Hebrew syntax being, well, delightfully ambiguous sometimes. The key word is the, which just means brother of.
Simple enough.
It seems simple, but the way the phrase is built around it grammatically, it allows for both interpretations. You can read it as Shem, the older brother of Japheth, or you could potentially read it as Shem, the brother of Japheth the older.
Huh. So the grammar itself creates the uncertainty.
Exactly. It's not necessarily a mistake or a contradiction. It might even be intentional. The text sort of invites you to pause, to consider. It shows that ancient texts can communicate in ways that aren't always rigidly straightforward.
That's really interesting. It forces you to engage, not just passively read, like the text itself is saying, think about this. Does this ambiguity, does it really change anything major down the line in terms of their roles or blessings?
Maybe not in a huge plot-altering way, but it does keep you alert. It reminds you that not every single detail is nailed down with absolute certainty. The text seems comfortable with that bit of openness.
So it's like the text is subtly saying, don't get bogged down on who was born first. Focus on the bigger story.
That's a good way to look at it. It pushes us towards the more significant themes. They are both important ancestors, and the narrative moves forward regardless of that specific birth order detail.
Okay, I like that. The ambiguity serves its own purpose. Now let's move down Shem's line a bit to verse 25. We meet Peleg.
Ah, Peleg, yes.
And the text says about him, for in his days the earth was divided. That sounds ominous, or at least very significant, not just a casual note.
Oh, it's far from casual. It's brilliant, actually. It's one of the Bible's great examples of meaningful wordplay.
Wordplay. How so?
Okay, so his name, Peleg. It comes directly from the Hebrew root Peleg, and that root literally means to divide, to split.
No way. His name means divide?
Yep. And then the verb used right there in the text, the earth was divided, is nitmega. It's the same root.
So his name is the event.
Essentially, yes. His name is the prophecy. It's embedded right there in the genealogy. It's a living signpost pointing to a massive future event.
And everyone connects this division to
The Tower of Babel. Genesis 11, the very next chapter, where languages get confused and people are scattered, divided across the earth.
So this little note about Peleg, tied to his name, it turns this dry list into, like, a narrative clue, a bit of foreshadowing. That's clever.
It's incredibly clever. It transforms genealogy into literature. You can almost imagine his parents. Maybe they had some inkling. Or maybe it's the narrator embedding the meaning. Either way, think about poor baby Peleg growing up. His name basically means Mr. Divide, or split.
Yeah, maybe not the most auspicious name.
But it forces us to ask, what kind of division are we talking about? Is it just the linguistic split and scattering at Babel?
Or could it be more? Like geographical borders starting to form, political divisions?
Exactly. It suggests that this process of fragmentation, cultural, linguistic, geographical, started becoming a defining feature of human existence around that time. And the text ties it directly to this individual, Peleg.
So the name itself carries this huge theological weight about why the world is the way it is, diverse, scattered, sometimes in conflict.
Precisely. It prepares you for the Babel story and explains the shift from one human family to many distinct groups.
And that brings us back to something you mentioned earlier, that description that pops up a few times, like in verse 20 about Ham's line, and it's implied for the others too, describing the nations.
Ah, the fourfold structure, yes.
Right. It says they were sorted according to their clans, languages, lands, and nations. That's very specific, not just by family.
It really is. It's quite a sophisticated model of what constitutes a people group. Let's break down those Hebrew terms. You have lemishirtam, that's clans or families, the kinship structure.
All right.
Then lishishtam, tongues or languages, the way they communicate their shared culture through language.
Got it.
Then bericham, lands, their physical territory, their geographical space.
Makes sense.
And finally, legishem, nations or peoples, their collective identity as a group, especially in relation to other groups.
Wow. So clans, languages, lands, nations. That's a really complete picture. It's saying identity isn't just one thing, like blood.
Exactly. It's interwoven. Kinship, communication, place, and collective self-awareness. It's a surprisingly holistic view of social reality for such an ancient text.
Why these four, do you think? What does it tell us about how the authors saw the world?
Well, it suggests they understood that a distinct peoplehood needs all these components. A clan gives internal structure. Language allows shared thought and culture. Land provides a home and resources. And nationhood gives that collective identity.
And if one is missing?
Then the identity is weakened, perhaps fragmented or absorbed. You need the whole package, according to this model, to be a truly distinct goy, a distinct people.
Okay, so this framework, it makes the Tower of Babel story even more significant, doesn't it? You said it makes it theologically loaded.
It absolutely does, because Babel isn't just about, people suddenly speaking different languages and finding it hard to cooperate on a building project.
Right. It's more fundamental.
It's a direct strike against this very structure of unified identity. They lose their single lishan, their language, that forces them to scatter into different lands, which naturally breaks up the universal meshifa, the single family, into distinct clans, and that solidifies them into separate guyim, distinct nations.
So Babel fractures all four pillars: language, land, clan, nationhood. It's the event that creates the very divisions that Genesis 10 is cataloging.
Precisely. It explains the origin of that diversity and division outlined in the Table of Nations. It shows how deeply language, land, and lineage are tied together in forming who we are collectively.
That's a powerful insight. It really makes you see this chapter not just as a list, but as a map of the fractured human landscape after Babel, setting the stage for what comes next.
That's the perfect way to put it, a map.
So let's pull it all together. We start by saying this chapter is way more than a dusty family tree. What's the big takeaway?
The big takeaway is that the Table of Nations acts as this crucial theological compass. It paints the broad picture of all humanity, all these diverse peoples, but within that vast picture, it subtly, deliberately points the reader towards one specific lineage, the line of Shem through Eber the Hebrews, leading eventually to Abraham.
So it sets the universal scene, shows us everyone, and then zooms in.
Exactly. It establishes the global context, the reality of a divided world, and then says, okay, now watch this line closely because this is where the main story, God's specific covenantal plan, is going to unfold.
It's masterful, really, how the text uses things like the Peleg pun or that fourfold definition of identity to turn what could be just, data.
Like census data.
Yeah, into something literary, alive, and packed with meaning. It really shows the artistry involved.
It's a testament to the sophistication here. It's history, it's theology, it's literature, all woven together. This chapter lays the foundation. It explains the why behind the world's diversity before the narrative focuses on the call of Abraham and the beginnings of Israel.
Okay, so quick recap then. We saw the origin of Hebrew itself in the name Eber, a linguistic flag in the genealogy.
Yep, marking a key lineage.
We unpacked the amazing wordplay with Peleg, his name meaning divide and foreshadowing Babel.
Turning genealogy into prophecy.
And we explored that deep four-part definition of identity. Clans, languages, lands, nations, showing it's about much more than just blood.
A really sophisticated understanding of peoplehood.
It just goes to show these ancient texts, when you dive in, they are incredibly vibrant. They're not just static records.
Not at all. They're layered, rich, full of literary craft and theological depth. They grapple with fundamental questions about who we are, where we fit, how we relate to each other, questions that are still relevant.
Absolutely. Which brings us to a final thought for you, the listener.
Yeah, think about this as you go about your day. How much does language still shape your identity? How does it connect you or maybe divide you from others?
And what about your sense of land or nation, however you define those today? How much is your own identity, your sense of belonging, tied up in the languages you speak, the places you inhabit, the cultural stories you inherit and share?
It's a timeless question, really, sparked by this ancient text. How are we still defined by these categories today?
A really powerful thought to leave with. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you feel a bit more informed and definitely more curious.
Hope so.
We'll catch you next time.